Welcome to today's, call this a Lakeside chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Eric Freeman, founder and CEO of Liberty Commercial Finance. And apparently that's our welcoming call right there. The geese are happy to see you as well as I am, Eric. So thanks for joining me today, man.
You're very welcome, and I got to say, I'm jealous that view you've got behind you is pretty incredible.
Nah, the filters are fantastic, and to have my wife over here with the geese sounds and everything. So, but thanks again for joining me, man. And for those people who might not be familiar with you, Eric, do you mind just kind of talking about your career to date in equipment finance?
Sure. So, Eric Freeman, CEO, founder of Liberty Commercial Finance, launched in April of 2017. So about 4.5 years old now. Started in the equipment lease and finance industry back in 2003. Pretty much right out of college. I helped a friend with a startup after graduating, but that didn't go too far. It was a good experience, but didn't get out of the gates. And I came across an ad for a job in sales at a independent equipment lease finance business that was actually offering a salary. Everything else seemed to be commission only. Back then, it was kind of at the end of the recession following 9/11, and tough time to find a job in any industry. Getting out of college with no real solid experience. So responded to the ad. I think the salary was $17,000 a year, and they'd pay you if you found some leads, but sounded better than nothing. So took a run at it, making cold calls and chasing deals. I was a finance major in college, so it was a good fit from my background, and always had kind of a natural sales ability. So I think it was a pretty good fit for me right out of the gates. Had some early success. And the company I worked for didn't really have much of a niche. They were an independent finance company doing small ticket, doing large ticket, kind of all over the board. They were only a couple of years old, sort of trying to find their own footing at the time. Found a good niche in aviation finance, though. I was brokering helicopters and all revenue generating assets, and it was great. Found some banks that would buy the paper, and went out and found deals with all the people doing transportation to oil rigs, EMS work, logging, stuff like that, for mostly helicopters. After a couple of years, the person that hired me left to start his own company, and so I took his role as head of sales and hired some salespeople and kind of started the sales management part of my career. I think that was in 2005-ish. And a couple of years after that, ended up leaving to follow the person that had hired me to the company where he had started. It was First National Capital, which is one of the larger independents today. So I jumped on there about 2 years in, helped build the sales team and take that company from kind of startup to one of the biggest on the independent list as well. After about 5 years there, just wanted to kind of change the scenery and moved on and started a new division under Summit Funding Group out of Cincinnati, Ohio. They had always traditionally been in the kind of better credit, investment grade or near investment grade, pure leasing, where my career was more in the kind of structured finance, single B minus, triple C plus, a little tougher credits, higher yield. And it sounded like a good fit. They didn't have that platform at Summit. They'd been around 20 years and kind of doing what they did. Right. And I went to them with, hey, look, we can start this whole new group. And so I went there in 2013, kicked that group off from startup to did 100 million, I think, in our first full year as a team there, and helped grow Summit from kind of a sleepy leasing business that had been around for a long time to, I think we did over 300 million in volume my last year there. So I was really happy about kind of building a group from ground up, and felt like at that point it was sort of time to go try it on my own. I'd learned from 3 great entrepreneurs in those first 15 years in the industry on sort of what to do and sort of what not to do to build a successful organization. And so in April 2017, I pulled together all the commissions I had saved up and put them in a little pile and went out on my own and started Liberty Commercial Finance. So it's been a pretty great run in the first 4.5 years. I never really imagined we'd have the instant success like we did. It was more of a let me go start something small that I can have my hand, my fingerprints all over and really run the organization from top to bottom the way I felt it should be ran, and maybe good things would happen, and it's certainly worked out that way.
No, I mean, that's fantastic. And obviously you've started different business lines at other organizations, so I'm sure that definitely helps. However, that fear of just going out on your own, I'm sure you're sitting there, but congratulations. I mean, you guys have been very successful in your first, not even 4 full years in business. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a good ride for sure. And certainly, paychecks are a bit of an addiction, right? You get really used to that money coming in every month, and to cut ties from something like that, especially I had a 3 and 5-year-old daughter at the time, and put everything I'd ever earned into it. Didn't have that big safety net behind me, so it was definitely scary and exciting at the same time. But so far so good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think in my 16 years of being in this industry, I've always pretty much been a commission salesperson. In 2020, I decided to build a big house while finishing building a big house, and then taking a leap of faith too, and going from that to start something else. So I understand that position, especially with young kids.
In time, yeah. So Liberty today, we have 32 employees. We are in the top 10 of private independents, targeting about 350 million in volume this year. We originate pretty much everything direct to the end user. So we have a team of salespeople calling on companies that have revenue of kind of 50 to 500 million in annual revenue, sponsor-backed companies for the most part, and we also call them the sponsors themselves. Deal sizes generally range from about $1 million to 20 million or so. We do stuff on the fringe. We'll do some small ticket, generally for relationship purposes, to try to get people sort of in the boat and working with us, and then we'll grow the relationship from the first deal, the $100,000, hopefully a couple million over some reasonable period of time. We do target, I'd say it's sort of just outside of the bankable universe. So if banks just can barely are almost going to say yes to a credit, or they just kind of say no, there's one more quarter they might be there. That's really what we're looking to step in and fill that void. So if it's a really good credit, really good collateral, and a super easy deal, there's just not a lot of value that we add. And I think that's probably one of the things that I attribute our success to, is really know what we're good at doing, and then know what we don't add a lot of value to, and making sure we stay in the deals and in the spaces where we can add value. So our customers come back to us for more than just one deal, and we create these partnerships that last more than just a deal or two. We try not to be transactional as far as our business model goes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can appreciate that as someone you sit there and you go to like a bank, and the numbers are there, but you're a few basis points off, and you get frustrated, right? And then it's like you have someone like you that say, yeah, I can help you out with that. And it's just a long time customer, because you're doing something that the banks traditionally won't do.
Yeah, the perfect customer for us is not as concerned about rate as they are concerned about certainty of execution, about flexibility, about us getting to know their back office and our documentation people, working closely with them, and really taking the burden of these deals off of their plate, and handling as much of that internally as we can. We send all of our customers Yetis. That's our kind of our go-to gift for doing it now. And we try to brand ourselves the same way, right? Where Yeti's not the cheapest, but they're the best. And that's the way we feel about Liberty.
Nope, that's a great point. So you guys are located in Southern California?
We're at Gordon, Southern California, Tustin, where I live as well. So it's a great community and a great team, the majority of which are here under our corporate headquarters. I guess not as much as they used to be with COVID stuff here and there. So we've got kind of flexible working, and every time we have a little scare, people are back home working for a bit, but for the most part, yeah, right here in California.
Yeah, I was gonna say on some of those, like especially some of those aerial deals, you know, what did that do to that portfolio last year? And this year I'm assuming it was kind of a little slower than in years past.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we contracted about 20% year over year from a volume standpoint from 2020 to 2021. Part of that was really our 2019. I'm sorry, we contracted from 2019 to 2020 by 20% from a volume standpoint. Part of that is we just had an absolute knock it out of the park 2019. We think we only had 8 salespeople on average in 2019. We did 300 million in volume, so it would have been a hard year to replicate without a lot of growth from a headcount standpoint anyway. So even though the headline of contracting 20% doesn't sound great, we're actually really proud of putting up 240 million in a year of COVID for sure, because we had a lot of people that we've been doing business with were up to then just went from 30 million to zero, right? And when you base a lot of your business on repeat customer and you lose some people that sit on the sidelines for a year, it's tough to fill that back in. Yeah, so COVID was tough for sure. Fortunately, our portfolio held up. The deals that we did fund in 2019, 2018, 2017, we had no losses in the portfolio. And even though we'd sold the majority of that business, we stay in touch, and we helped service a lot of that. And we did help, with payment deferrals and everywhere we could. We reached out and we're proactively restructuring some payment terms, but fortunately we didn't have any actual losses, which was great.
That's fantastic. And as far as that particular industry, aircraft, like and some of those higher ticket items from a supply chain disruption perspective, like are you seeing a lot of that when it comes to some parts and just overall that sector?
Yeah, we are. Just to correct though, the aviation stuff was early in my career. We don't do much aviation here.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, sorry about that. I wasn't sure.
But yeah, so definitely we're seeing supply chain issues. We've got customers. Actually, we've got a schedule we're funding today. It's $1 million of a $2.5 million schedule that the customer ordered this equipment last either late November or December. It was supposed to be delivered in April. And here they are finally getting the first $1 million of the 2.5 right now. So and that's just one instance of what we're seeing for sure. So it's unfortunate, but it's across pretty much every industry that people just can't seem to get equipment delivered, and that's definitely slowing the volume recovery probably across the board for everybody.
Yeah, I can imagine that'd be kind of frustrating. You have a deal that is delayed that long, just because of that. It's crazy.
Trying to put these projections together, and it's really difficult to figure out when things are actually going to fund, because of it's just one. And just traditionally, it's always a hard thing to put your finger on exactly when things are going to fund out. But in the COVID world that we're in today, it's even harder.
So starting a business in 2017, lessons learned, Eric, are the things that you would have done differently? What are you obviously proud? I mean, you cracked the monitor the first year from the independent rankings perspective. You know, the lessons learned, I guess, in the last 4 years of business.
Yeah, you know, it's tough for me to point to anything that says, "Gosh, I would have done, you know, this completely different," because we're at a point where I never thought we'd be sitting here today, this quick anyway. Um, Certainly a few things here and there, personnel wise, the first probably 6 months, it's hard to hire the people that you think are going to be around for, you know, 10, 15 years with the organization. It's hard to get them to come to a startup and take that journey and that, you know, jump off that plank. So there were some hiring probably misfires in the first 6 months, that led to some early turnover in the business that is incredibly disruptive and painful, to say the least. But outside of that first, probably, I'm trying to think, after the first 6 months or so, we've had almost zero turnover in the last 4 years. So there was a lot of misses out of the gates, and you know, I think the adage of slow to hire, quick to fire is probably more true in a startup than anywhere. But with the way that this business was kind of launched, trying to go from 0 to 100 right away,
Right.
I hired who I could, and you know, there were certainly some misses along the way, but you learn and you keep moving forward, and that's all you can do.
No, and that makes sense. And obviously, I apologize. I think the internet connection can be a little a little choppy sometimes over here. So apologize if you see me kind of junking and jiving all over the screen. But you went from a VP of sales roles in your previous couple roles now to running a company. Obviously, that's pretty much been the roles that I've been in my career in equipment finance. So what's that like, being, you know, at the top, and now having everyone report to you as kind of being a sales guy that, as long as you're going and you're selling and you're meeting your quota, it's like, leave them alone. But now you're not afforded that anymore.
Yeah, it's that obviously that's an enormous transition. The time while I was at Summit Funding Group definitely helped with that. Starting a group from the ground up, I got involved in office leases and some of the sort of higher level things. But nothing can you really prepare you for all the other stuff, payroll, healthcare, 401ks, raising capital, private equity investors, credit lines, bank facilities. It's certainly a lot. And then, you know, you got to do all that and then, you know, close a deal here and there as well, right, to keep the lights on. So
Yeah.
You know, it's been a while now, right? 4.5 years in. I think I'm finally getting the hang of it. But certainly the work week was no longer 5 days, it was 7. The work days were no longer, you know, 8 to 10 hours, it was, you know, 24 hours. Sleep becomes not a thing, and you better have a good supportive family behind you, willing to not see you as much as they used to, or at least when they do see you, understand that you're in mostly zombie mode for a while. So you know, just looking back at those early days, it certainly is a little fuzzy, just because I was operating on such little sleep and adrenaline for probably the first year and a half. But I wouldn't trade it. Wouldn't trade a day of it for anything either.
So basically, it sounds like it's almost like having another kid.
It's like having triplets when you already have 2 toddlers.
That's funny. That's funny. So everyone that I've had on here, Eric, I always ask them to do a little fun fact about themselves. Anything you'd like to share?
So fun fact about me, I bought a rental house on the North Shore of Oahu during COVID, partly as an investment property, but another part so I can go out and surf the big waves of the North Shore whenever I get a free moment. So I'll be spending my winters out there chasing waves at Rocky Point and Sunset Beach, and maybe pipeline one of these days if I get the nerve up.
Nice. That's not something I've ever done before, so I can't relate. I'm sure it probably look like a seal trying to get on a surfboard, but hey, you never know. One of those days.
There you go. Put it on the list.
Exactly. So, of all the independents out there, Eric, why do business with Liberty Commercial Finance?
I think what really separates us from the majority of the independents out there is our, I'd say our overall access to capital. We've spent the last 2 years in a perpetual capital raising mode. I took on a private equity investor just over a year ago, added a bank line, added a senior unsecured deal, and now working on our first securitization. So we have a pretty robust on balance sheet funding process for our customers, where we're really trying to drive the majority of our growth. But every deal doesn't fit, one portfolio, right? There's always a deal that's going to be outside of what one independent or bank or whatever lessor it is can actually finance. And so I think what we really strive to do here at Liberty is make sure that we can say yes to every deal. So whether it's going to be in our portfolio, on our balance sheet, or if we're going to bring in a syndication partner that we're going to go sell the deal to, if there's any deal in the market that can get done, Liberty can get it done, and we can get it done at the best pricing, best structure, best service possible. And I can say that with all the confidence in the world. I've been in this business for almost 20 years now, and I worked at a host of different independents, and being that true hybrid with our own money and every funding source on the planet actively working with us and good partnerships there, I really think that we've built a business where we can get every single deal done for any situation.
No, and just you and I've been working a lot with each other in the last 6 months, and just seeing what you're doing, just knowing some of those funding partners, they have nothing but positive things to say about your organization. I'm excited to see what the next 3 to 4 years bring, for sure.
So am I. It's been a great 4.5, and I feel like we're just getting started. So I really appreciate the compliment there, and obviously our funding sources, they're our lifeblood. So love to hear that they have good feedback on us as well.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks again for your time. I guess this morning, your time, I think an hour ahead of you. But yep. Appreciate your time, Eric. Hopefully our paths cross over the next couple months at one of these upcoming conferences. And once again, just thank you.
Sounds great. Go enjoy that beautiful view behind you.
Will do, sir. Thank you.
All right, Jesse, have a good one.